Hi. While I was still in the Watchtower, but struggling about leaving, David gave me a book to read. This is the book, George Orwell, Animal Farm. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who is an ex-witness or who is trying to decide whether or not to stay or go. This book, for me, while I was reading it, and I read it in one sitting, it's like a fairy tale, a story. And I'm into fairy tales. I love fairy tales and stories. But when I was reading this book, I felt like I had lived it. There were so many things that it had in common with the experience of being a Jehovah's Witness, the organization, the history of the organization. So even though Orwell, when he was writing this book, was talking about political tyranny, it is very useful for illustrating religious tyranny. The same principles, the same tactics are used in both. I was struck by all the parallels with this history. So first of all, I'll just tell you a little bit of the story. The story is about a revolution where the animals take over the humans' farm. And subsequently they develop their own kind of government or rule and leadership. They start with what seems like very noble reasoning, policies that would please all the animals. And so I just wanted to read you their founding rules or commandments. On page 23 here, it gives you their founding 7 commandments, which they paint on the side of the barn after renaming the farm, Animal Farm. The 7 commandments. Number 1, whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Commandment number 2, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Commandment number 3, no animal shall wear clothes. Number 4, no animal shall sleep in a bed. Number 5, no animal shall drink alcohol. Number 6, no animal shall kill any other animal. And number 7, all animals are equal. So initially they go into a kind of very idealistic honeymoon period where everybody's happy and glad that they're working for themselves and that they have comrades that they feel on equal basis with. But in the development of the story, the pigs end up being the ones that provide the leadership. But this is also kind of a smooth transition. Page 25 kind of describes why they end up being the leaders of the group. The pigs did not actually work, but directed and supervised the others. With their superior knowledge, it was natural that they should assume the leadership. Boxer and Clover would harness themselves to the cutter or the horse rake. No bits or reins were needed in these days, of course, and tramp steadily around and round the field with a pig walking behind and calling out. So they become the leaders because of their leadership qualities. They were more educated. It tells you in the book that they taught themselves how to read. And so they were good speech makers. They become the leaders. The other animals are less intelligent, have difficulty learning. They try and teach them to read as well, so they have more difficulty with it. Some of them can't remember things. So it kind of goes gradually down from the pigs, but the pigs are the ones that do the leading. 2 of the pigs, Napoleon and Snowball, become the head figures, and yet they don't agree with each other. They have opposite ways of doing things, and their demeanor is pretty opposite as well. So Napoleon is more authoritarian, and Snowball is a little more gentle. He's very enthusiastic, and he's often thinking of the common good. He's got big plans, but they're for the common good of all the animals. The other animals are more followers. They're subservient. They do what they're told. They don't complain. And they're very dependent on the pigs to come up with good plans and to direct how the work is going to get done. But over time, there's a rivalry between Napoleon and Snowball eventually gets exiled from the group. Under Napoleon's rule, things start to change, and there's a rewriting of history that goes on as well, so that Snowball ends up being slandered and becomes the enemy and is behind everything that goes wrong, and even the things that he did with them as a group that were honored in the past are kind of rewritten to have not happened or to have been exaggerated. There's slow changes about their history. So you can see, I'm pretty sure, how this is very similar to the history of the Watchtower. You could either say the revolution of the witnesses is out of Christendom, or you could even say, if you wanted to, that the Napoleon and Snowball characters are like Russell and Rutherford. Very different characteristics and very different approaches and temperaments of the two people, and in opposition with each other in the way they want things to get done. So over time you also see the dependent ones being taken advantage of. The fact that they can't read and don't know is used against them. They also use Napoleon and his other pigs use fear as a means to keep things going their way. So they are always kind of leaving it as a threat that Jones, the original owner, the human, might come back. And so this will always make them just cooperate with whatever changes happen. Oh no, well, we wouldn't want that to happen. We wouldn't want Jones back. So they end up getting their way. Also, fear of punishment for criticism develops over time in the story. The animals are hard workers, and they're working hard because they think this is going to result in basically paradise. It's going to mean eventually all animals will rule themselves and live at peace and grow their own food and eat their own food and have their children and not have to sell them to the market. And so they're looking forward to this happening. So that's the carrot that's dangled before them. Always just ahead. Always the promises are just ahead. A couple of other things. When it comes to the commandments that I told you that they had it in the beginning, those are changed eventually as well. They rewrite that history. They were painted on the side of the barn. And then when things change, the animals will kind of have this vague remembrance that doesn't seem to connect with the commandment that we all established together. So they kind of doubt start to creep in. But what happens is that during the night, someone has gone out and added words to the commandments to subtly change the meaning. For example, if you'll remember, Commandment 4 was, no animal shall sleep in a bed. The words with sheets are added on to the barn. So when it's read to the animals again, they think, oh, well, I didn't remember that, but I guess that was always there, and that makes sense. You know, they're given some kind of a plausible argument. No animal, number 5 was no animal shall drink alcohol. Well, now that has added to it to excess, because the pigs have discovered alcohol. Number 6 was no animal shall kill any other animal. That has added to it without cause. So whenever a change has happened in the way the rules are, this happens till eventually you can't recognize the original commandments anymore. Another little piece that I thought I'd read you, because it just sounded so familiar, the way in which the Watchtower would reason with the public or with their supporters. This is Squealer is kind of one of the pig's representatives that would go around and explain how if orders had changed and new arrangements. So this is Squealer speaking. He says, "Comrades," he said, "I trust that every animal here appreciates the sacrifice that Comrade Napoleon has made in taking this extra labor upon himself. Do not imagine, comrade, that leadership is a pleasure. On the contrary, it is a deep and heavy responsibility. No one believes more firmly than Comrade Napoleon that all animals are equal. He would be only too happy to let you make your decisions for yourself. But sometimes you might make wrong decisions, comrades. And then where would you be? Suppose you had decided to follow Snowball with his moonshine of windmills. Snowball, who, as we know, was no better than a criminal. He fought bravely at the Battle of Cowshed, said somebody. Bravery is not enough, said Squealer. Loyalty and obedience are more important. And as to the Battle of Cowshed, I believe the time will come when we shall find that Snowball's part in it was much exaggerated. Discipline, comrades. Iron discipline. That is the watchword for today. One false step and our enemy would be upon us. Surely, comrades, you do not want Jones back." Once again, this argument was unanswerable. Certainly the animals did not want Jones back. If the holding of debates on Sunday mornings was liable to bring him back, then the debates must stop. Boxer, who had now had time to think things over, voiced the general feeling by saying, "If Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be right." And from then on he adopted the maxim, Napoleon is always right, in addition to his private motto of, "I will work harder." When I was a witness, if you had any doubts, you were encouraged to work harder. Just do more. Be busy. And those doubts would go away. So there's just so many common things here that I found that I could identify with in this story. That for anyone who wants to learn the history of the Watchtower in a hurry, just read this book. It's a short little read. It's enjoyable, but it's also very revealing in how these things happen. How do people get sucked into agreeing with changes? It's over time those changes happen, and you begin to question your own memory. You start to think, maybe it's me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. Well, you're not. So I would highly recommend this book to people to read if they want to understand history of cults, of the Watchtower, or if they're struggling with their own doubts. Read Animal Farm, George Orwell.